Live.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the session where we explore our country's research and development capabilities and take a look at some of the current research projects. We have with us Dr. Pidoju Satish Kumar. Professor Kumar is an associate professor in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering, IIT Roorkee. He has about 15 refereed publications in various journals, and his areas of research include pervasive computing, Internet of Things, sensor networks, edge, fog computing, cybersecurity, mobile security, among a whole host of other tools. Professor Kumar is currently involved with a project from Samsung Research Institute Noida themed dynamic detection of Android malware using context-based profiling and machine learning technologies. May I now invite Professor Kumar to please take the dais and share his um, profile product with us.
Yeah, thank you, Vikas, for introducing me. And let me share the slides. Okay, so is the slide visible to you, please?
Yes, it is, sir.
Thank you so much for confirmation. Okay, so first of all, I would like to congratulate the entire DSCI team for initiating such a wonderful activity with a national importance. And I'm here to present cybersecurity's research profile at IIT Roorkee. Typically, my own research profile, which introduces what exactly we are doing in the context of mobile security majorly, and we are also working on to some extent cloud security also. And I'll give all of you kind of superficial hint like how the research is happening at IIT Roorkee, and I'll also hint like what are the researches done by other professors in the department. First of all, let me introduce the institute. The IIT Roorkee is oldest institution having 170 plus years of glory, and it is the first technical institution and first technical university, institution established in 1847, and it is having like it is a first technical university established in 1949, and in 2001 uh, it has got a national importance by, I mean, it is declared as a institute of national importance by Government of India, and it has become IIT Roorkee from 2001. The institute offers bachelor's degree in 10 disciplines of engineering, architecture, and other departments, and postgraduate degrees in 55 disciplines, again engineering, applied science, architecture, and planning. And is also having several facilities to pursue the doctoral degree in all the departments and research centers. It is having a vision to attain the global level of excellence in education and to create a sustainable and equitable society through innovative research in science and technology. Its mission is to create an environment that shall foster the growth of intellectual capability, innovative and entrepreneurial professionals who shall contribute to the growth of science and technology in partnership with industry and develop and harness it for the welfare of the nation and mankind. The institute is having core values to uh, like provide academic integrity and accountability, respect and tolerance for the views of every individual, attention to issues of national relevance as well as of the global concerns, historic understanding including knowledge of the human sciences, appreciation of intellectual excellence and creativity, and an unfettered spirit of learning, exploration, rationality, and enterprise, sensitivity to social responsibilities also. The Department of Computer Science and Engineering is established in 1964 as part of EC department, and they introduced computer science and technology postgraduate program in 1982. And in the same year, it has become electronics and computer engineering department, and it's got bifurcated in 2013 as a separate department, computer science and engineering department. Uh, the department has always been on high growth path and keep pace with current technologies, current technological trends. The department has successfully completed several uh, research projects, sponsored projects, as well as consultancy projects. And besides that, the department is also having a lot of R&D facilities, as well as it supports consultancy services from the various industries. The vision of the department include to promote the innovation centric education and perform cutting edge research in computer science and engineering. Its mission is to continuously endeavor to create and sustain an academic environment conducive to the highest level of research and teaching. Develop human resources with sound knowledge in theory and practice of computer science and engineering, facilitate the development of academic industry collaborations and societal outreach programs. We at the High Performance Computing Lab, as a team with many of my students working as a cybersecurity team, and we are working majorly towards cloud security and mobile security. Majority of research outcomes are from these two domains, but otherwise there are many other professors in the department who are also contributing to several security researches. Major contribution is from Professor Manoj Misra. He is working on phishing and web security. Professor Sugat Gangopadhyay is working towards cryptography and quantum cryptography, blockchain kind of technologies. Professor Balasubramanian R is working on multimedia security. Professor Durga Toshniwal is more towards privacy preserving data mining. Professor Sandeep Kumar is towards semantic web security. Like most of the security domains are covered in the department by many of the faculty colleagues in the department. Very good research contributions are there from all of our colleagues. I must mention that IIT Roorkee is part of computer emergency response team established by Uttarakhand government, Department of Information Technology, and its goal is to support computer systems used in various government offices for identifying security loopholes and chalk out a foolproof plan against hackings. And the major contributor in this process is the Information Technology Development Agency, ITDA. It's part of the Department of Information Technology, Government of Uttarakhand, and this CERT team is like IIT Roorkee is part of this CERT team as an expert member, and I'm proud that I am part of that team. And as a IIT like development activities in many ways. Yeah, coming specific to my research, as I mentioned, like we are focusing our research towards mobile security and cloud security, and I'll try to give a very superficial idea of what is mobile security in towards which we are working, and how cloud security is concerned in our research. Yeah, the major research contribution from our team includes Android malware detection and typically using of machine learning wherever possible. And as we all know that day by day mobile market is increasing, and desktop markets are decreasing. That means the people are adopting mobile devices in a large number. And alongside, we are also seeing several vulnerabilities or malware attacks towards these mobile devices. And when we see the contribution of Android malwares, it is growing like anything. And we see that around like above 85% of the malware attacks are due to Android phones. Yeah, we can see that like number of malwares, how it is increasing as far as your mobile malware is concerned, Android malware is concerned. Why Android? Because like there are several reasons. The weak sources of Google Play Store, the open source kind of nature of your Android platform, and several other mobile centric weaknesses. And the aim of these attackers is to uh, target the system damage or information leakage or economical losses, or some use this mobile as a source of botnet attacks. So in our lab, we targeted to design several models to detect such algorithms which evade, which like detect the malwares. So we targeted these algorithms in three components: static algorithms, dynamic algorithms, and hybrid detection algorithms. So typically we from our lab, so far so forth, we produced 4 different models, and we are still working. And recently we had a collaboration with Samsung Research and Development Laboratories, and that's how we foster much better research in collaboration with the industries. So one sort of source of attacks is the permissions, because Android phones are weak in one sense that the permissions are uh, given by the users just like that, without going into the importance of these permissions, or why they are why the users are using and all that. So the permissions, like for example internet, read phone state, the combination, these two combinations can lead to massive attacks. So we targeted to choose in our research what permissions should be allowed, what permissions should not be allowed. I mean, we can prioritize them. Then we can like analyze which permissions are actually contributing for uh, attacks. So permission patterns, we try to detect in this model what are the permission patterns which are actually contributing for the attacks. So the problem statement is how to effectively use permission patterns to detect the Android malware. So these are different sort of permission patterns that are given, which are like top 10 permission patterns are given. Sorry, permissions are listed here, and we formulated a graph representation in our algorithm. We developed a model named perm pair that analyzes the permission patterns of in a particular pair, and we took several like malwares as well as normal traffic, which are of like the as old as 2010 to 2012 and as new as 2015 to 2019. And we consider different sorts of data sets for uh, these malwares detection. And the size of the malwares is like around like uh, malwares are around 3000 and 3000 plus, and normal samples are around like 5000 plus nearly. And we try to use these samples to analyze how effectively we can detect the uh, malware attacks. So we constructed separate permission graphs for malwares as well as normal graphs, and we combined them. And using weighted sum approach, we tried to figure out the detection, like attacks. So the goal of this work is to figure out like how high true positives are there, how many low false positives are there. So this is like these both are conflicting things. So we need to have a algorithm which is a multi-objective optimization problem. So we adapted weighted sum approach to detect such malware. And this work is published in IEEE Transactions on Information Forensics and Security TIFFs journal. And the approach is to find the different permission, like categorize the graphs and find the score for each one, and figure out based on the length, size of the score, the permissions are defined as malicious and normal. And the merged graph produced 95.44% of accuracy. And we try to, like again as I told you, like permissions are categorized into different like pairs, and we prioritize which is having high impact and which is having low impact and so on. and we try to eliminate the edges from the graphs which are irrelevant sometimes, and we tried all the different possibilities of graphs constructed, and we analyzed which sort of once produce a attacks more attacks permission combinations are. Okay, then we consider also, because static analysis usually static analysis usually like evade stealthier malware usually evade static permission based detection due to some update related attacks will be there. So we aimed at designing an algorithm which is having network patterns where static algorithms doesn't recognize the network pattern related attacks. So the second goal of this research was to include network traffic analysis, and in the process we try to again prioritize which network features are actually impacting on the detection. So we took several actually contributing for the attacks. So we took 22 features, and we analyzed those 22 features using emulator in the beginning, and later we took the actual smartphones and we tried to analyze these samples on, and these researchers can be found at two different conferences, NGMAST and ICDCN papers. The goal of this research is to find, detect Android malware based on network traffic analysis, and figure out which features can better distinguish normal and malicious apps. So we developed a model to prioritize these network features for Android malware detection. And a lot of, again, as I mentioned, several datasets are used with malware and normal datasets, and we prioritized them, and we realized that a combination of these features F2, F19, 21, 1, 5, 16, 4, 10, and 9, these are the 9 features which are actually contributing for majorly contributing for attacks. And we realized that even if we add more features to it, the detection is not going to improve. So with that, we realized that the model what we have figured out is having better detection with only just 9 top priority features. We can say that these are the attacks, the detection can be possible. Okay. And in the results we saw that out of 150 samples, around 146 samples are identified, but some of the malware samples which are using encryption techniques, and they are evading the detection both in malware as well as normal samples. So we also tried with time executions, and we found that the times are pretty much low with our model because it's using only less number of samples compared to 22 number of samples. It's less than half of the number of samples. So time has drastically reduced, execution time. That way, we say that this is a lightweight detection model. And we also proposed a hybrid detection model where it combines both permissions and traffic features, where the network based models won't detect the static permissions based attacks. So we wanted to combine both, where the traffic features and permissions can be considered and used as attack sources. So these are the two publications in which we published this research, and here we adapted the frequency patterns based approach as well as supervised k-mediates and unsupervised k-mediates and supervised KNN algorithm for the detection. So in the model 1, let me quickly move on. In the model 1, we used different permissions and different patterns of network features. We combined both of them, we clustered them into different patterns, and those patterns are used for the detection purpose. So I'll just skip the results part in the interest of time, but just to give you a hint that hybrid detection is pretty much good compared to any other approach. Okay, we found that malware samples with update capabilities like unserver bat or base bridge, which are not detected in your normal static approach, or as root or fake player zones. I mean, these are attacks which missed the network network detection models were actually detected by your hybrid detection models. So this way, the detection accuracies are also improved in this model. And as I mentioned, like we adapted the k-means or k-midites algorithm for clustering, and then in each cluster we applied the KNN algorithm to figure out the malware samples from it. So these are all different detection results, which indicates that this combination is pretty much good in the detection compared to the previous models what I discussed. Okay. So these are other publications we have from our team, and we have also published a book on security and data storage aspects in cloud computing in Springer. And we were also working in reliable data auditing and optimal data encoding parameters in cloud. And as we all know that security in cloud is the major concern raised by the users or of the cloud, and it is the research goal is to maximize the users trust and minimize the data losses in the cloud. So in the process, we tried to investigate optimal encoding parameters and to protect the data from the losses, and we aimed at designing a reliable data verification mechanisms in the research. Okay, so these are different algorithms what we proposed, and we did performance analysis in this research. So I skip this slide, and the goal of the research is to support public auditing, proof reliability over distributed fragments, auditability over distributed EC fragments, infinity number of verifications, and data integrity, fault tolerance, data recovery support, reduced server dependency, maintain confidentiality of data, privacy preservation, data reliability. Other researches include from IIT Roorkee teams like phishing, web security, cryptography, blockchain, quantum cryptography, privacy preservation in data mining, multimedia security, security in semantic web, security in computer vision, image processing, security in Internet of Things, NLP for security, and many other researches are happening at IIT Roorkee. We also offer several training programs. We are having a separate course on information and network security offered as an elective course to master level students as well as bachelor level students. But these courses are also taken by PhD students for their coursework clearances, and many minor students will also attend, and some students from other departments would also prefer to join the courses. It's a 4-credit course, and it is mostly chosen course by many of the students. And we are having a information security education and awareness project sanctioned by MIT, Government of India, and this project offers several postdocs, and we have got a lot of publications from this project, and we do a lot of research, offer internships, etc. And also we offer several training programs from this ISCA project, which include the training programs like NetSec, cloud security, iWood security, network security, cryptography, web security, privacy preserving, like many courses we are offering from this ISCA project. And we are also having another project, Electronics and ICT Academy, the EICT Academy project, again sanctioned by MIT Government of India. And from this also, we offer very similar courses that are offered as ISEA project courses. And we are also having QIP program, and from the QIP also we offer several security related courses from it, from our department, by several of other myself and other colleagues. And I am also offering a 8-month program, training program, in association with e-learning center of IIT Roorkee, and in a tie-up with startup Ecovation Technologies, which is a startup offered by alumni of IIT Delhi and IIT Roorkee, and it is the advanced cybersecurity certificate program in cybersecurity. And this is majorly meant for professionals, but we see that this is a third batch running, sorry, 2 batches over, and soon we are starting third batch. And majority of them are professionals, but we are seeing several like students and other practitioners also. And it usually happens.
Professor, I hate to interrupt, but in interest of time
Yeah,
and
yeah.
to allow our other panelists to also present their
I'm
work,
done. I'm done
I would
actually.
request you to.
I'm done with it.
Okay.
I'm done.
Thank you, Professor.
Yeah, I'm done.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for giving me the chance to present the IIT Roorkee profile, cybersecurity profile, and my research aspects to the audience and visitors.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor.
Thanks to all.
Now I may request my colleague Shravani to please take the stage and take the session forward. Thank you. Thank you, Professor. Thank you, Shravani.
Thank you, Vikas. I'll request Professor Deepak, Dr. Deepak, to turn on his. Yeah, thank you, Professor. Moving on to the next part of the program, we have with us India's one of the algorithm and deep learning gurus, Dr. Deepak Garg. Welcome, Dr. Deepak. Dr. Deepak is director leading India AI and head and professor in computer science and engineering, Bennett University, and director, NVIDIA Bennett Center of Research on Artificial Intelligence. Dr. Deepak Garg is leading the largest scaling and research initiative in AI and deep learning in the country. Dr. Deepak will talk about explore the country's R&D capabilities and current research projects in the institute. Over to you, Dr. Deepak.
Thank you, Shravani, for the introduction, and it was nice hearing the presentation from Professor Satish from IIT Roorkee. So I will give a brief focused session on cybersecurity R&D capabilities of Bennett University. So as everybody knows, Bennett University is an initiative of the Times Group, and we plan to change the landscape of higher education and research in the country. So we have these industry partners who are working with us. So Data Security Council of India is one of our prime associate in this work. So we have many people from Data Security Council of India working in various committees who oversee research as well as our curriculum design. So I appreciate the efforts of DSCI in furthering the objectives of cybersecurity in the country. So we are also deeply engaged with Cisco, NVIDIA, EC Council, and Fortinet for different cybersecurity projects. So we have started from this year BE in computer science engineering with specialization in cybersecurity. So which is a very bold initiative, and we also get advice from Data Security Council of India for this initiative. So some of the specific new innovative courses that has been started at Bennett University as part of this specialization are system and network security and cyber security in relationship with blockchain as well as IoT devices. And there is a very interesting course on cyber law also, because many times the engineers, they only know about the technical part of the work, but they also need to understand the other side of the story, that how it is to be integrated with the society. So I will talk about a few of the projects that are going on in the Bennett University. So one is called HTPRED, a complete defensive machine learning tool for hardware Trojan detection. So this is specifically to create a learning framework for pre-silicon detection. And because we are very strong in artificial intelligence and we have a very good team, so many projects you will see that are integrated with heavily taking expertise from AI and applying AI on cybersecurity problems. So this project also develops a standalone and web-based application that is very useful for researchers and industries to predict the Trojan at the chip level for both pre and post fabrication phases. So the other one is security assessment in IoT network using traffic statistics. So here we so the different objectives of this projects are including the network traffic capturing as well as splitting, which helps in separating the IoT device traffic from the whole network. And it also helps us in building the flow construction such as TCP and UDP from IoT traffic, and the feature extraction, which is the major outcome for extracting different types of features from packet level, flow level, and behavior level. So the third one that a very useful and important project going on is IoT network traffic classification, because we know that now the world is going towards a stage where we have trillions of IoT devices lying everywhere. So it is a lightweight edge device based traffic analyzer for attack detection and device classification. So the necessity of these kind of research and projects is increasing day by day. And because of the large number of IoT devices, it is necessary to use deep learning technologies as well as data analytics tools to properly get the outcome from these projects. So another one our team is doing is intrusion detection system using ML. So this particular project aims making intrusion detection system based on machine learning approaches, and basically it uses the algorithms for anomaly and hybrid based approach. And the different versions we have tried, which includes SVM as well as random forest KNN. But as you know that now the traditional machine learning algorithms are no more better than deep learning neural networks. So essentially DNN is again giving the best accuracies in this particular approach. So as I am only giving you the brief of the work we are doing, so I have not included the results and the publication details here, so which you can always go to our website and check it out. So one consulting projects we have done with one of the big industries is about click fraud detection for click-through rate. So all of us know that the most of the company's budget goes into marketing, and the companies are very sensitive towards the frauds and proxy clicks to claim more revenues. So many times we also hear a lot of people getting caught and running businesses only to generate fraud clicks on different websites and advertisements. So our team at NVIDIA Bennett Research Center worked on around terabytes of data, which was the log of different clicks done by different users on a particular advertising platform. So we were able to increase the accuracy of fraudulent clicks through the deep learning models. Then another one is violent action recognition using drone surveillance. So this was again a very useful project, and the publications as part of this project has been highly cited by the researchers across the world. So here we do the action classification detection model where we detect the humans from the aerial images, and we have developed our own data set, and we are able to come up with a good model for this. Then we go to the next one, that is development of lightweight image encryption techniques for cloud-enabled IoT applications using chaotic systems. So this is interesting at the interface of cloud as well as IoT and using other associated technologies. So as we know that IoT devices, they need low resources and but highly vulnerable to the cyber attack, because you cannot have a very robust security system because of the size of the device itself. So we need a very strong encryption technique for them. So a completely distinct approach has been developed by our researchers for this particular purpose. So entirely different aspect, which is DNA-based authentication protocols for securing resource-limited mobile environments. So it makes use of DNA cryptography to encrypt the passwords based on the sequence of the DNA, and the information enciphered by the DNA is used to authenticate the user and server in the global mobility network. So the main advantage of DNA sequenced coding are improved coding efficiency, convenient for logical and mathematical operations. So these are the projects that are being done at Bennett University. So apart from this, looking at this COVID situation, we have done many online workshops on cybersecurity as well as on other futuristic technologies for the benefit of the whole nation. As part of leadingindia.ai, so we have done around 200 workshops across the country and trained around 15,000 trainers who has again reported us back that they have further enabled in total around 1 million students. So again, thank you to Shravani and Srishti and Vikas for arranging this session. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Deepak, for broadly explaining about the current research project in Bennett University. Dear attendees, please do visit to our exhibition hall and explore more about distinct and innovative R&D projects by leading institutes like RRI, IITs, Bennett, and research centers like BARC and CDAC. Our attendees can use hashtag CSR&D Roadshow and hashtag National COE to share their thoughts around the initiative on social media, and do not forget to tag at DSCI. Over to you, Srishti.
Thank you, Shravani. Now I welcome our next speaker, Dr. Gaurav Varshney, Assistant Professor in Department of Computer Science and Engineering at IIT Jammu. Dr. Varshney, I request you to please put on your camera. You're welcome, sir.
Yeah, hi.
Dr. Varshney has over 22 publications and 163 citations to his research work. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. And it is very nice to be here speaking about the work that we are doing at IIT Jammu. I will take you through a small journey. One of the projects that I'll be discussing in this presentation is the one which we had with DSCI, which was supported by DSCI. So what we do, if we want to see what we do at IIT Jammu, we are at a location where security is on demand. We need to work in security because we have several government agencies and the work which is coming up, sensitive kind of place we are. And that gives us an opportunity to work in the area of security in a more better way, or you can say that more consistent way. So most of the work that you want to, yeah, just a second, So if you want to look at the work that we do, we majorly work in access control and authentication. And we have actually given working prototypes on most of the access control and authentication mechanisms that we have developed to government agencies, which are actually in practice, which are being used. We work in application layer security, internet security. We are working in the area of network security, IoT security. We are working in biometric security and privacy, machine learning for security, cryptography and post-quantum cryptography, and PKI applications, BLE security, memory forensics, email security, and data tracking on internet. If we need to see the courses that we offer at IIT Jammu to actually take the students forward in the area of security and to interest them, we actually offer cryptography and computer security, networks and system security, and machine learning for security to the BTech students. We also offer cyber security and security of CPS. These are very good subjects that we're actually trying to offer. That's why I've kept a star there. We have actually started offering it in the next semester and the coming semesters which are there. The institute has these set of faculties who are working in the area of security, including the director, Professor Manoj Kaur, the dean, Professor Janwala, Subhashish Bhattacharjee, Dr. Budheshwar, Sumit Pandey, Gaurav Varshney, Dr. Yamuna Prasad, Dr. Vineet Chaketia, Dr. Hakirat Kaur, and Dr. Debulina Khatak. Without taking much of time, I just want to actually focus on the work that we want to showcase here as one of the capability that we want to showcase in this particular talk. So this actually idea came up very recently from one of our projects that we are doing with UIDAI. We're working with the improvements of Aadhaar. And there we came up with one of the idea as to how we can actually bring in the concept of offline authentication. And the concept of offline authentication is very, very important in the context of India, where maybe internet is not available at places where people want to do transaction. We want to make sure that everyone will be able to do transaction even if they don't have internet. And that problem is solved somewhere by OTPs, but the problem is still there, that you need to have a network there. So we were working on that, and we submitted one of the project to NCOE DSCI, and we got the opportunity to work with DSCI on this. And the answer to the question is something that we have got. But before that, I just want to tell you that when we started, what we wanted to achieve in the final solution that we have got, which we call now at OTPC, or one-time period cards, or offline authentication. So OTPC and offline authentication both are provisionally filed as a patent, and we are working on the complete specifications of this patent. So I'll be taking you through a broad description of what we are trying to do. So what we are trying to achieve is that we want to have on-demand generation of payment cards. So what we want is that a new physical card can be generated and associated with the user account instantaneously. Now this is very unique, because currently what happens is you go to a bank, you want to get a debit card or credit card, you need to apply, and you get 8 days of buffer time, and after that you get the credit card or debit card. What we want to do in this project is we want that the user will be able to generate the debit or credit card instantaneously, the click of a button. And we're not talking about a virtual card, we're talking about a physical card. We want a facility to generate one-time use cards or one-time period card, which means that we want that the debit card is one-time use. You use it one time and then you can throw it. It's of no use, right? So we want to have a technology or have a technique through which one-time cards can be generated and can be like discarded just after you're done with the banking. So we want to also have offline authentication, which means that we do not want that the system which is doing authentication require an internet connection to authenticate a person. We also do not want that the user must have internet connection on their phone to authenticate themselves, right? We do not even want that there should be a database as well. So we want that there should not be any database as well at the entity which is verifying the identity of a user. Everything should be offline. So we also wanted in this project that card cloning should not happen. For example, someone has a debit card. If he clones the card as well, then also he'll not be able to do anything. And that can be achieved if we can have one-time cards or one-time period cards, which are available for one-time period. We wanted to achieve in this project, there should be touchless authentication, which means that there should not be any touch involved, and that is taking care of the COVID requirement, which was coming up to the banking sector. So some other achievements that we wanted to have in this project is we wanted that the solution should be globally verified, like an authentication credential or authentication card that we generate should be globally verified on anywhere in the world. Like you can go to any other country and you can say that, please verify me, and the other country person can verify. So something is required so that global verification is possible. So you don't need to have MasterCard, Visa, and different technologies to integrate with the payments. You must have a global verification of identity, and which can seamlessly integrate with the payment system. We wanted to have a secure spoof-proof identity so that the identity cannot be spoofed. One important thing that we wanted in this project is that the privacy of the user should be there. For example, if the data is leaked with respect to the authentication of the user, the leaked data must not identify a user. Right? So you need to store the data in such a format that even if the data is leaked, the privacy must remain preserved. Right? The very important aspect of this project was that we wanted to have varying trust in payments. For example, you go to a specific shop, you're not very trusted with respect to the POS where you put your card. You think that, okay, if I'm going to a nearby shop, I must not use my credit card because there can be cards coming there, right? So you have varying trust level when you go to different POSs. And we want to serve that problem. We want to solve that problem, that how you can have multiple cards instantaneously generated, having offline authentication, which can solve the problem. So what was our approach? Our approach was of one-time cards, one-time period cards. And before actually taking you to this approach of one-time period cards, I want to show you a video that actually explains our concept that we are coming up with. So let me just so I'm playing one of the video with which relates to our development that we have patented, which can help you understand the idea behind this solution. Okay, so as you have seen, what we are trying to do here is that we are trying to use the existing technology, which is NFC, and using the existing technology, what we are giving is the opportunity that anyone can actually create a debit or credit card on the go. We have tested one of the implementation using the NFC cards which are available, and one of the implementation is already ready with us, which we have actually experimented, and we made sure that all the credentials which are required to perform a transaction can be actually stored on an NFC device, and the user can go to a shop, buy an NFC device, convert it to a debit card, and do the payment. Not only that, what we have did is we have kept all the identity information and PIN information and whatever information is required on the card itself. Now, this contradicts with one of the thing which came up in the earlier days where we have said that no, we cannot store everything on the card itself. But with the advancement of cryptography and PKI, what we are able to do is we are able to create a mathematical computation which is extremely hard for someone to actually break. And this is one of the things which is coming up from the existing implementations that we have studied, which relates to some of the things that we cannot reveal at this point of time. But the thing is, like, we have tested that it is quite secure. With the improvement to this particular thing, we have identified that, okay, we can store some of the identity information that can be used in ATM cards to do transaction. We came up with another idea where we have said that not only we can store a PIN information on the cards, we can also store biometric information. So what we're trying to store is we are trying to store the biometric face information on the card. And this is one of the challenge which was there with the existing implementation of one very, very popular identity card, which we use every day. Or you can say like the identity of the user in India. So in that particular card, this is one of the challenges that storing image is very difficult, and how we'll be able to store image. We solved that problem by storing the face encodings of the image and encrypting the face encodings of the image in a cryptographic format and storing it as a QR code, making it sure that the identity information of the user is spoof proof, right? So I just want to show another video if time allows me. Can I do that, Shrishti?
Sir, you just have 5 more minutes left.
Okay. So I just want to cover up this thing first, so then I can play the video. So basically, what was our approach is that we created dynamic virtual card numbers for one-time period use, which means that the NFC card that we are creating, it's not storing the real card information. Instead, it is actually storing a virtual card information corresponding to a real card. So the bank generates a virtual card, and the virtual card identifies the one-time period card. We provide on-demand generation of physical card, which means that we use NFC tags as credit, debit, or identity cards. We provide easy-to-use card because the card information which is available. So we studied this a lot, that why the card information which is written in the card cannot be written as a QR code, right? Because if QR code is available, you can have your old age ancestors and things like that, like your grandfather and other people, do payments without entering any information on the websites. And we have tested that if we have QR codes, we can actually do seamless payments by just scanning the QR code. So whatever we have stored in NFC tag, we provided a way through which the same information can be written in QR codes on the virtual cards, which are available in the apps. We generated unique crypto message for every OTPC that we generate. So which means that if there are 2 OTPCs, then both the OTPCs will have a different cryptographic message, which we'll use for transaction. Eventually providing card cloning, security from card cloning, and also it provides forward secrecy. We provide digital signature on every OTPC, which means that every single OTPC card which is generated is digitally signed by a different set of keys, which are with the bank, and then bank actually uses one of the key as identified through the virtual card number to actually check the digital signature, providing more complexity to the actual process of skimming. We provide complex mathematical functions for calculation of the crypto message, which makes it very difficult for someone. So what is that? Let's suppose if you're having an NFC tag. Now NFC tag can be cloned. Anyone can come up and can scan your NFC tag and can get all the information. So we allow that. Why we allow that is because the dynamic virtual card number has nothing to do with the real card, because by knowing the virtual card, you cannot get back the real user identity. And the second thing is whatever is cryptographically stored, it takes an amount of time which is greater than the time which is to which we are issuing the one-time period cards. So it will not be of any use because the one-time period card is for 7 days or say 1 month or something. We are using conventional NFC tags for banking, so on-demand generation of the cards. We also allow that NFC at point of sale, which means that let us suppose you are going to a pawn shop, right? And you want to do payment, right? So if you want to do a payment at a pawn shop or a very normal shop, the person don't need to have a kind of say POS of a MasterCard or Visa to take your card and do the payment. So you can have the NFC tag, you scan it to his mobile phone. If his mobile phone has NFC receiver, it can actually do the payment using the bank's app. We also use face encoding, which I've already said that we are using face encoding as the biometric information and completely storing that biometric information on the card itself without needing any database even for scanning. So I just want to show it in a second, and I'll finish so that we'll be able to get what we are trying to say here. I think there's some problem with respect to the audio. It was not connected. Sorry for that. So I didn't check that. So these are the challenges that we are facing: adoption and standardization of the technology. How we can make sure that the banks should buy our technology and use it, or say wallets such as Paytm. We are working with that. DSA is helping us in connecting with the organizations which can buy this technology and can help us build this technology. We are making it usable because IT is not everyone is not pro in IT to generate the NFC cards as a debit card. So we need to think about that. Can we have offline POS as well? Now, this is one of the very challenging thing. RBI has actually told that we can do a payment even in the offline mode. And this is very challenging to implement. When POS does not have payments, how you can actually solve the problem of concurrent payments. People can use the same cards to do payments at 10 places because you are not verifying it with the database because you are offline. How we can have key management issues solved and PKI related issues solved while making these cards. Both of these are already patented 6 months back. We are submitting the complete specification soon in time, and we believe that it will get accepted as per our understanding. So thank you very much, DSCI, for giving this opportunity to present our work, and thank you very much for supporting us in this research. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Varshney, for highlighting the current research work at national level. Once again, I would like to thank Professor Satish, Professor Garg. It was really wonderful to know the projects. With this, we begin our last session of the day with our second plenary discussion on making India a global hub for security R&D and product and entrepreneurship in few minutes. Thank you, everyone.